I do like the little fireside effect. It's like a fireside chat tonight. That's cool.
Yeah. Got that nice crackle fire in the background. You know, if I can turn my chair a little bit, we can actually see the fireplace. Hi.
So my skeptical self, I literally thought posting that we're talking about clerics tonight would probably lead to the lowest interest level we've ever had. that's I know, that just shows how hard my bias is against clerics.
Ouch, John, ouch.
I know. I literally think clerics. No one's gonna watch a show about clerics. So as I said, essentially tonight I'll be your keyboard monkey. I'm gonna make sure I have the, I'll have all these.
Let's talk about stuff. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'll have all the PDFs up for you ready, and you tell me where you want to go. It's gonna be fun. Hey Patrick, good evening, sir. First in the chat. I didn't even think about modding on Wednesdays. I guess that's something I should think about too. I was going to mainly work on Tuesdays and Sundays, but yeah, we probably should think about who's going to mod on Wednesdays.
Well, I believe Iculus said he was going to be watching tonight, because I saw him in Josh's stream chat a little while ago.
Good, and we can give Patrick Fraley mod as well. He reached out, and whenever he's in, he's definitely... Hello, Josh. Good to see you, sir.
See, there he is.
Yep, dead on.
Yeah, so, Josh, Brim Josh, is very, very excited about Tailspire.
Oh.
And is building an entire city right now.
I noticed.
An entire city.
It was during my work, so I couldn't really watch it, but I saw he kicked it off, and he was geeking out on it, which I'm so happy for him. Yeah, C-Cars, no doubt. You are worthless, Chris. No, you know I love you, man. So begins night 3 of my humiliation in my dinosaur shirt.
I personally can't wait to see it in person on Sunday.
Oh, hey, Josh. We got a raid from Josh. Let's go. All of you Tailspire checkers-outers. Yeah, I saw Josh was geeking out on that. I've got some fun stuff to talk about with that tonight too. But tonight we're going old school D&D, talking about the cleric class, going all the way back to 1E, Dragon Mag 58, and then kind of through the years. So we are the amalgam here of new tech and old school D&D. It's going to be a fun night. Hey Robert, good to see you. Thank you for the raid again, Josh. And here we go. Make sure I get the right one up. Boom. There we go. Evelyn, hello.
Hi.
And welcome. This is Loremaster's Arcanum number 34. And tonight we're talking about my least favorite topic, clerics.
Ouch.
So I
because they're my favorite class.
I told Evelyn, I mentioned this also to the ever mysterious Tim today, and he accused me of all kinds of judgments that I don't think I'm guilty of. But I said, thank you, Josh, for the sub. I have never played a cleric in 40, I gotta stop saying 40 years now because it's like more like 41 now. So 41 years of playing D&D. I've never played a cleric and I've never played a druid. And so I am the least qualified player / DM to talk about this topic. So it will be led tonight by the amazing Evelyn, who is a cleric personified. And so it's gonna be a fun night. We do wanna say, yeah, I guess, Josh, it is impressive in its own right, but it just shows. So I played fighters, paladins, cavaliers, assassins, thieves, druid. No, I'm sorry, not druids. Illusionists, mages, sorcerers. I played bards. I've never played a cleric or a druid. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just never felt good about that. So we do want to say tonight thank you to Trollord Games, one of our newest sponsors. I'm not going to go through all the sponsor lists tonight because I want to make sure we have plenty of time to dive into this topic and let Evelyn. We've got several Dragon magazines we're going to go through. Really, really fun stuff tonight. But all of our sponsors, thank you. I shout you out all the time. I want to give a special shout out to two tonight, Trollord sponsors, Trollord Games rather sponsor. They're fantastic. I'm having regular communication with them. And then not a sponsor, but a fantastic new tool that we're using, Tailspire. So you saw Josh, he was geeking out on that today, NPC Voices. Next week, we'll be doing a dive into Tailspire on the 14th. That's our regular Wednesday LMA. And then I'm very excited. It's not confirmed, but it's likely. I believe I will have the leads, the head people behind Bouncy Rock Tailspire on with us February, or probably, gosh, I'm losing my mind. I'm so tired. On April 28th, and they're going to be with us on stream, talking about the vision behind the product, the tool, what they're doing with it. It's going to be so much fun. Also, on future LMAs, we have Mike Disney coming back. We're going to do some cool things with Mike Disney. On May 5th, we have the ever mysterious Tim coming back on for part 2 of ancient weaponry, armor, tactics. It's going to be a fun stream to have him with us, and so that'll be May 5th. We've got some great guests coming here in the next several weeks, but tonight, it's about clerics. Sorry, it's about clerics tonight. I don't know, it's about clerics tonight. So.
I'm wounded. I feel personally attacked.
Hey, thanks, Patrick. All right, so I've got these Dragon Mags ready. Let's jump right into it. Evelyn, you are the lead tonight on the show. Talk to us about clerics.
Alright, hi guys. So tonight we're talking about clerics, which are in fact my very most favorite D&D class. I love them to bits. It is my most favorite class to play because I like playing classes that can heal people. It's just fun. But we're gonna look all the way back to actually the AD&D Players Handbook, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the kind of cleric has evolved over time, because they have quite a bit actually, from AD&D all the way to 5e now. They are quite different today than they were back in the day, down just simply to the number of deities and the weapons they were allowed to use and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So yeah, so I have this the AD&D Players Handbook here, and it's really interesting looking at it because the way the cleric class is set up in the original way it was to be played, there were such limitations to like their stats. They had to have very specific stat ranges to be actually in their creation, and like only half elves, humans, and half orcs could be clerics. No other races could be clerics in AD&D.
What's wrong with that?
It's a little strange. I'm not used to because I love Dwarven Clerics are really fun too, and there's the
okay, that's
really
fair. That's fair. Yes, I think that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting that back in the original setup of clerics that only half elves, half orcs, and humans could be clerics, with humans actually having the widest range of space to actually play a cleric. If you were half elf, you were limited to only being able to go to level 9 as a cleric, I believe. And then you had to like multi-class.
Right.
And so, and that's interesting too for people that like that variety. And there's some really cool things you can do with that. But it was just really interesting and looking all at that. But stepping out from the just the original setup of the cleric with Dragon Magazine 58. We actually had, there was an article written by Leonard Lekofka that basically dealt with adding more to the cleric class than what was initially established in the original Players Handbook.
Okay,
Because
so I'm
there
gonna
was
pull that article up for you because you gave me this in advance. Thank you for doing all this
Yes.
work. So I'll pull that up. Before I do, I just want to acknowledge, yes, the racial restrictions, they were odd at times. And I don't even like the term racial. They're almost, I don't know, species, or it's not about any sort of prejudice. It created a strength for each one of them. So you wizards were just a race and class, and elves were just all of that stuff was different, and it created strengths for each group. It wasn't intended to be in any way discriminatory. It was intended to create specialties for each group. So I do think we want to open that up, but I still like the idea that there should be some level of specialization so that we're not nerfing the whole system.
Right.
That's why I like some of the older systems, and I still kind of weed that in. So this is Dragon 58. This was 1982. And I like just walking through these old Dragon mags, so I'm sorry, you got to bear with me, any of our viewers. Hope you guys like this stuff too. Iron Crown Enterprises was introducing spell law in 1982. This was part of their original, so they had the Middle-earth role-playing, and then they had the advanced process, which was Iron Crown spell law. You had claw law. You had all kinds of really cool stuff. And then read the cover to covers. Read, look here, beefing up the cleric. That's where we're going tonight. And I love a lot about the cleric that Evelyn is going to talk about tonight is based on stuff that came from the great Leonard Lekofka. Leonard Lekofka, if you don't know that name, please look him up. He just passed away in the last several months, and he was a legend in the D&D community, contributed so much content to what made the game what it is today. And so Evelyn's first source, as she jumps in, is right here, Dragon Mag 58, page 32, or probably 38, 1982 article. Go ahead.
All right, so just to backtrack for a second, though, I also thought it was really interesting that clerics couldn't be true neutral, that the option for a true neutral, if you wanted to be true neutral, you had to play a druid. So I thought that was really, really kind of cool, and how much overlap actually in what we would now, like in like 3.5 and 5e, consider druid spells were actually cleric spells, like cleric specific spells, like communicate with plants. It was actually a cleric spell and not a druid spell, strangely enough, in the original Player's Handbook, which I thought was really interesting. Also, I found it fascinating that healing spells were necromantic spells in the original, like cure wounds were necromantic spells, and now they're what is it?
So
Yeah, one sec.
Yeah, so
They
in the original stuff, because the necromantic was sort of the opposite side, so you could cure, you could cause, you could heal, you could harm, and then that changed in a lot of the newer systems to be sort of a separate style of magic. But I thought that balance was good in the old school systems.
Right, I found that really fascinating that they were considered necromantic spells for healing. You are so silly.
Sorry, I'm not waving at you, I'm waving at Esther. Oh, they can't see her, sorry. So her little, beautiful little daughter just popped up behind the chair, and I always wave at her when she comes on. But yeah, I think that's a great point, Evelyn.
Yeah, but yeah, I found that fascinating that they were necromantic. Like I could see resurrection and those sorts of things being technically necromantic spells, but I found it fascinating that healing spells were as well. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So in Dragon Magazine 58, This was actually the first part of a two-part thing that Leonard Lakofka had written to kind of expand on the cleric class beyond what was in the original Players Handbook, which was primarily addition of more spells, but also the suggestion that certain spells be only available to certain types of clerics depending on who their deity was, which I found really fascinating. And like kind of limiting, you know, you get these spells as a benefit of the person that you or the deity that you follow. And so, you know, I thought that was kind of cool having it like more specialized that way. It was an interesting way of making a more varied sort of cleric in at least the original rules. I think there's really good ways to vary your clerics now, at least in the system we play, with the spells that are available and the ways we can use them, because the spell list now is just massive.
Yeah, it's a much bigger spell list, exactly.
Right. And with the you know, the domains and the establishment of like certain domains you can pick from, and certain deities have certain domains, and you can pick and choose which ones you use for that, which you know, two clerics of the same deity might have different domains and therefore are completely sort of different types of clerics, which I think is really fascinating.
Yes.
And so I kind of see that in that mirroring what Lynn was talking about in this article about having, you know, certain spells to certain clerics. I feel like that kind of carried over in that idea of the domains being specific to deities, so that you had certain spells that were given to you specifically because of that.
Yeah, no,
so
I love that.
The continuation of that, I thought that was really interesting. As part of that.
And while you're getting, no, I agree. And while you're getting ready, so I want to come back to this introduction. All readers should be aware, although there's a space between a and where. I'm gonna love these old dragon mags. You should be aware that Len Lakofka has been of considerable aid and assistance in formulating the whole AD&D game system. Wow, I wish such a thing could have been said of me. He was critical in all of this, and then of course all this content. So where in this article would you like us to focus, Evelyn?
I had brought it up because, where is the specific spot?
While you're looking, I love the fact, you see this a lot in all the Dragon Mags. They would have these articles that would say, be the first player to cast these new spells, right? Because it wasn't this sort of canonic major tome that came out, 4E, 3.5E, 3E, 5E. It was being dribbled out through this periodical Dragon magazine. So if you got the Dragon mag, you could have the newest spell, the newest monster, the newest class, or kind of variant of class. It was really cool.
Well, my specific interest in this was just, you know, the discussion about looking at, like, the fact that he and Gary, in the author's introduction specifically, where he's talking about how they had discussed at length that they thought that the spells needed a little work, and so like that's where this whole thing has kind of sprung from, and so that, you know, new spells should be added to the game with great care and stuff, but like making sure that, you know, there was a balance between player character clerics and non-player character clerics as well, because that was all a part of that. So I don't have a specific like quote to pull from that. I just thought some of the things were really interesting about how they were creating new things because of the need for expansion upon what had originally been done. Just seeing that the fluidity of the classic D&D game, how it was constantly expanding and growing and changing.
Okay, so I love that. You're so right, and I love this comment here. Gary and I had a lengthy discussion. Gary wanted me to, like, this is just, to go back and review this, it's so nostalgic for me, and it doesn't matter if you're just a 5e player and you're using Fantasy Grounds. These things are not your enemy, they're your friend. They just give you context and background. You can, again, pick and choose what you'd like to put into your campaign, but it's just so fun to read this stuff, and it really gives you the context. All right, so in the chat, Lizzie said the one thing she didn't get is that Pathfinder allows clerics without deities, which she really thinks is stupid, and I would never allow it at my table. Oh, by the way, I agree. There is no such thing as a cleric without a deity in my game. But what do you think, Evelyn? I'm sorry, I set you up with that because I told you what I think before I asked the question. So.
Well, I mean, you know, I personally feel, for me, that it it feels necessary for a cleric to have a deity. I mean, that they are a priest, more or less, or priestess of a. I mean, it's kind of built into the nature of them being holy or unholy in the case of the evil clerics. In their nature of they follow something in particular. I understand that like the newer versions of the game have established like them being dedicated to a specific idea or philosophy, I guess. I don't necessarily, I mean, if the, and I don't think it's a bad thing if some like a table chooses to do it that way. It's just, to me, that is not inherent and true to what I feel as someone who loves playing clerics.
Well, yeah, so
I would want to do with my cleric.
Yeah, so and look, again, this is not judgmental to me, but if you're a cleric is a divine spellcaster. If you're a divine spellcaster without a deity, where does the divine power come from? I just, and again, you could do whatever you want. You could say it comes from, some ancient gem in the center of the earth, whatever. So, all right. So I want to make sure because the chat's popping here real quickly. So this clearly proves I was wrong, and people do like talking about clerics. I mentioned this at the beginning of the stream. I've never played a cleric in my life. I've never played a druid in my life. I thought this would be the lamest topic to discuss, and I was so wrong. Evelyn, you were right. All right. So Tim said, if a player character disrespects the deity, should the cleric heal them? I think that's a great question and a fun. I love these nuances to the roleplay. Maybe the cleric, whether the cleric should be willing or not, is question one. Might the deity withhold the healing? Would be question two. What are your thoughts on that, Evelyn?
Well, the Dragon Mag 283 gets into that a little bit.
You want me to skip up there?
Well, not yet.
Okay,
but
right.
I will kind of cover this really quickly. But so it depends.
So when she's talking, so the Dragon Mags we're going to get through tonight if we have time. There's 58. We're going to talk about 68. I love this artwork. We're going to talk about 153. And then we have also, this is 283, I think.
283, yep.
Yeah, and this is one of the later ones. They have this really in-depth article on playing the priestly part. So those are all on tap tonight with the 45, 50 minute, now 45 minutes
and
now we have left.
I have links for everything, and I can throw that all in our Discord if anybody wants to check these out later.
Yeah, please do. And you've already thrown the Anon archive link in, right?
But I don't think I have put that one in because I don't have it easily copy-pasted.
Okay, I'll pop that in. So go ahead, continue.
But what I was going to say to the question is that primarily, I'm not going to say that all deities would be okay with this, because some deities are it depends on the deity. If they would be okay with a healer healing somebody that disrespected them. However, most clerics, their main job and their main goal is to help, to aid people, and that is who they are. That is, we are not, the clerics are not necessarily bound by as a specific stricture of oath as like a paladin. We're to follow and to minister to people, but part of that comes in the form of healing and helping and caring for others. That is, and 283 talks a little bit about this, but that's how it could be even treated as a form of ministering. A way to convert people to the belief, in this deity, is to show them that, this deity has the power to heal them and make sure that they're safe and able to continue on. So I think that the question, it depends on the deity, and it also kind of depends on the cleric, because some clerics might get really mad about you insulting their deity. But at the same time, you have to think about the fact that, like, you probably don't want to insult your cleric too much, if they're the one you're relying on healing you in the middle of your D&D game.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. And Lizzie said that earlier. She talked about a cleric of Sarenrae would probably obligate that kind of healing, whereas others might not. We just hit 7. Was there a raid? Oh, yes.
Yes,
Time Lord's Wife. Thank you,
so
Kayla.
thank you very much.
Kayla, thank you so much. We're up to 72. That's a great total on LMA. All right, so make sure I didn't miss any questions here. Great questions in the chat. I own a Dragon Mag. I'm almost as old as John. Thanks so much, Derek. I love that. It's role play. Okay, so Terry said earlier, and this is so true, like clerics don't necessarily mean holy righteous. There are evil clerics. You can be serving an evil
neutral clerics.
Yeah, they're evil deity, and that's. But you, all I'm saying is you need a deity, whether it's good or neutral or evil deity. That a deity is necessary. All right, where else would you like to go in these Dragon Mags, Evelyn?
And so basically, I actually found 58 via 68, Dragon Mag 68, because that one was actually referenced Dragon Mag 58, because it was basically part 2 of the of this series where Lynn was building on to the cleric class along with Gary. And this one, though, was specifically looking at the Cloistered Cleric, which is basically your NPC, basically how NPC clerics should be different from player character clerics, because they should be. You know, they are primarily going to be found within a church or a convent or, a mission of some sort, depending on who their deity is.
All right, and we're in 68 now, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so as we jump into 68 for the viewers, go back, check these guys out. I say this all the time. Some of the ads are hilarious. You see these things about the role of computers. It was so funny to see how the game evolved. So again, we're still in the 80s here, early 80s, with Dragon 68. This is December, so just a few months past 58 that we just looked at. You see original Gary Gygax articles. Here we go, Featured Creatures by Gary Gygax, 1982. I don't care what edition you play. This stuff is fun to read. It gives you so much content. Look at this, two-fisted fighters. So this idea of being a dual wielder, there's all kinds of content out there in every system. But the detail that they go into here and chopping this up, it will give you ideas as a player or a DM that you can use to customize your game. So we're now going, let me scroll down here. I had this earlier and I lost it. What page am I supposed to go to? Look at this artwork.
It's page 30.
All right, gosh, look at this artwork. It is so gorgeous. I'm sorry, I'm being distracted.
You're okay.
The Gary
you have to appreciate the art.
Orcon 1983. Oh, this stuff is so awesome. Oh, spells, yes. Here we go. I just said this a moment ago, so look at this. Here, Gygax says, be the first to cast these new spells. So if you got the Dragon magazine, you could cast these brand new spells, which included Banishment. That was new in 1982. Morton Caden's Magnificent Mansion, Torment, Dismissal, all these things were being formed. It is so fun to see the genesis of this. All right, so we're going to page 30. Thank you for everybody that's watching tonight. If you're not a follower, please give us a follow. We appreciate. Oh, there you go, Kaz Played. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Oh, Grenadier Minis. Look at this. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I will get back to you. But these Grenadier Minis, professionals always use Grenadier Fantasy miniatures on their quests. All these old school things are so much fun to see. All right, so here we go. The Cloistered Cleric by Leonard Lakofka.
Indeed. And we also had a question in chat from Sweet KT. It says, question for other DMs. How much RP interaction, if any, do you allow or foster between a cleric and their deity at the table?
Ooh, what a great question.
Now, John, I know, because he's let me have quite a bit for any of my religiously inclined characters, both Irda and Marthalio, who we have not seen in a hot minute. But, I know you've always allowed us room to have time to have those interactions.
Well, not only have I done that, I think it's one of my favorite parts of the game. Whether you're a paladin or a good aligned cleric or this is not about, righteousness. This is just about the role play of the game. And there was a meme I think put in our Blue Box channel today about when you call on your, maybe, I don't know, I look at so much D&D stuff, it might not have been in there, but somewhere, when you call upon your deity for divine favor and they answer, and you look completely surprised. But I do like, you can't overdo it. You can't make the players feel like they have this omnipotent crutch. But, at times, it does work.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, and they're really the only time that one of my characters has had a direct contact with their deity, like face to face, was when Marthaliel died, which we didn't even see that on stream. That was a discussion you and I had behind the scenes that was really fascinating, and we fleshed that out so that if anybody ever asked about it, I had something to talk about. But yeah, so
So the Cloistered Cleric, anything here you would like me to highlight?
So the Cloistered Cleric, I thought it was really interesting. When he just talks about how if you go over, however, one wonders if non-player characters must meet all the same requirements, especially with regard to minimum scores necessarily being cleric, and if it allowed variation, how might they be balanced to retain some of the advantage for characters who do meet all the regular requirements?
No, that's a great point. So I'm highlighting that. So what she's talking about here, I've highlighted for you on the screen. Understanding the difference, as she said, this was very critical in the early game, and how to balance these things. So you got Templars or Hospitallars or medieval fighter clerics, which I want to talk about that in just a second. I got a fun thing to show you here in a moment. But go ahead, continue, Evelyn.
But yeah, so and just like I lost my place.
So you're talking about one wonders if a non-player character must meet all the same minimum requirements.
Right. And then, making sure that there is some variety within the actual NPC clerics that you might not necessarily see in player character clerics, by having them have different levels of ability. And that includes evil clerics, the ones you might come up against that are worshipping people like Ius and all of those other buddies. So just the idea of like, okay, so we have to look at these NPC clerics and possible foes, and what can they do, to keep them balanced with the player character clerics, because if they're completely imbalanced, then the game's just all out of whack for everybody. And it wasn't so much like balance in the sense of everything is exactly equal, but just keeping it within, the realm.
Right.
And we've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Terry said, evil clerics, bad, Pelor. I do want to come back. Bobcat, I like that question. And I'm sorry if I'm overlooking anyone's questions. The chat's moving more quickly than I thought it would tonight, which again just proves how wrong I was about how boring it would be to talk about clerics. So I recant, which is an appropriate term when talking about clerics. Bobcat said, are you strict about the aging rules when casting Resurrection? And we've talked about Resurrection a lot, and I don't want to get you too distracted, but I think it's a good question in the chat. What are your thoughts? You know how I kind of play that. Yes, I'm sorry, I did. Forgive me, Terry. It's my personal paradigm, and I've been proven wrong tonight. It's happening a lot lately. That's why I'm wearing this shirt. All right, go ahead, Evelyn.
Just the excuse me. The idea. Well, there's like different levels of resurrection, and in AD&D, there was only one type of resurrection. Now in both 3.5 Pathfinder and 5e, there's both resurrection and true resurrection.
Yeah, raised dead. You got resurrection. Yeah, there's
but just specifically looking at resurrection, and raised dead is another thing as well. But it's all about making things work for your table. Some DMs don't like resurrection. Some DMs will let you resurrect all day long, every day, as long as you have the materials for it. So it just kind of depends. As a person who enjoys playing clerics a lot, I kind of don't ever want to be in the position to need to resurrect somebody, because I feel like I failed at my job a little bit if someone is dead.
Dereliction of duty.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I have resurrected one player character, but it wasn't through a resurrection spell. It was through the one that you have to do within a round of them dying. I can't remember the name of it, but it's in.
It's escaping. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, but I did that one when Ant got swallowed by the creature, because I have diamonds for all of them, but that one was soon enough that I was able to get to him and resurrect him. So I have been allowed to do that. I had to roll percentile dice to see if he actually survived. And he did, thankfully. But it was it was a little touch and go there, because don't want them diving face first into monsters.
Okay, hold on. So I have been commanded by the chat. So first of all, Terry has threatened to never allow his NPC to heal anyone again because I called clerics boring. And then I have been told by Longshot Greg to go ahead and self-flagellate. So I'm using an iPhone cord here. I'm self-flagellating for these comments. I'm like, ouch, that hurt.
Don't hurt yourself. Yeah. Well, and the to Robert's point, that's why getting resurrected in when he was very punitive. That's why it's punitive with the way we do it too. It's
that's
not
right.
just you're. I mean, if you have to actually resurrect now with the within the round spell, that one I don't think he actually took any con because he wasn't dead long enough to have the con effect in that because it was within that round. But like anytime we've had someone die long enough that it's we have to get them properly resurrected through a ceremony. There's lots of parts that have to go into that to save them, and then there's always a stat shift. So
No, you did. The stat shift is important. I'm sorry, I was laughing because Kayla, she checked the terms of service for self-flagellation. That's a good point. Because I've tried to put a couple things like I think dismemberment because I had a session where one of the characters had lost a limb, and I tried to put dismemberment in the Twitch, the stream title, and I couldn't do it. So I don't know, self-flagellation. Hopefully, it's not violating any terms of service, Kayla. But no, that's so true. So on our stream, my games, and again, your mileage may vary. Do what you want, but I think Resurrection, as I've talked about before, should be difficult, challenging, punitive, only so that death matters. And we did a whole thing on death a few weeks ago, so I'm not going to go back into that. But anybody that missed it, I do like the idea that certain clerics have high enough power under the right circumstances that you have this power, but I do not make this a vending machine where you pop your dollar in and you get your resurrection coke out. All right, go ahead.
Well, and that's one of the few things that I feel like that DMs should definitely consider the material components for. There's certain spells that you can say, well, it's in your components pouch, but the diamonds that are valued at that amount of gold for all of those resurrection spells, you just have to have them to make it feel like it actually is something to work for and to be avoided as well. You don't want your PCs running into death because they know that they'll be brought back right away.
Exactly.
You want it to be something that is discouraged. So let your clerics heal you and help you. But don't.
You're right. Well, this is
reckless.
yes, and this is what I've called. I don't want to be repetitive, but I know we have a lot of new viewers. It's what I call the CRPG syndrome. Click save and restore. Bring it back. I'm going to charge into the gates of Hades with my healing potions, and if it doesn't work out, I'll just reload and go back at it again. That does not create the sense of immersion and the sense of appropriate sort of the healthy fear, the intent, where you feel like you're connected to these characters, and that to me is always the challenge with Resurrect. But I don't want to distract the topic of clerics because I can talk about that stuff all night. Let's talk about stuff I'm not good at. Let's talk about clerics. All right, keep going.
All right, so basically this is covering kind of what your NPC cleric would look like, and we'll go ahead and go to
153.
Let's go to 153 really quickly just
Okay.
to touch on.
All right, so while I'm going there.
On page 26, there was one line on page 26 that I really liked out of this article.
Okay.
It's dealing with the.
All right, so let me go slowly. I'm sorry, you know how much. So, and while I'm going slowly, so everybody can see this great cover art. Also, anyone remember SSI? The old this group here, they made all these old games. This was like in the early days Atari and Amigas and IBM PC 6064s, but they made great games. And while we're looking at that, there was a question. I want to look at this here. This came from, yes, the chat is awesome tonight. Thank you so much. Somebody asked, oh gosh, it's going too quick. Hang on. Let me scroll up. Yeah, no, I saw that, Tim. Appreciate that. Deities and priests, thank you, sweet KT. Oh, okay. I like this. Cold Steel said, a good thing to discuss would be examples of when good and evil clerics in films, books, and culture. I think both can be found in the Name of the Rose. Oh, Sean Con. I literally looked at that today. I was literally reading about that, Cold Steel. I think that is a fantastic point. So you can look at both literal, and we're going to show an actual historical figure tonight in a moment, but also fictional characters that were, you know, clerics and really can add flavor to your campaigns. All right, so Evelyn, I'm going to page 28.
26.
26.
And one thing really quick before we go on is I forgot because I got distracted by resurrection stuff. But the in Dragon Mag 58 actually was the, and we don't need to go back to it.
I'm already there.
It was the first mention actually of the Dwarven Pantheon and Dwarven Clerics.
Oh, okay, hold on. So I'm back there, and that
was on page 31 through 35.
Oh, so we're going to the end of it, so it's separate from that. That's a great find. Thank you for that. All right, so I'll get there. Oh, yeah, look at that. Here it is. The God, I've seen this before. It's by Roger Moore. Yes, great article. February 1982, Dragon Mag 58, The Gods of the Dwarves, the original pantheon for D&D. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's a really, really cool.
Yeah, and in 68, Gary had done a little bit of deities and demigods of Greyhawk in general. It was a few of them. It wasn't all of them, but it was a few of them. But I thought this was really fascinating. This was actually the first mention of Dwarven Clerics was in this Dragon magazine. And
this guy made an appearance in one of our recent Greyhawk Awakening campaigns. So you were in a spot just a few weeks ago where the name Clangeddon Silverbeard was referenced, and one of his avatars was part of the stream. So that's super cool. Thanks for pointing that out. All right, so we're back to 153 now.
So yeah, and 153 on page 26. It's the start of an article that's focused on the Greek pantheon and usage of the Greek pantheon in D&D, which I'm not so meh about that. But the thing that interested me about this was, in particular, was there was this line is, what do clerics do in their spare time? And that one of the things you can think about is when you're like making your characters or your NPCs, tying their hobbies and their interests to the deities that they follow and making them kind of more reflective of the deity that way. And obviously that wasn't one of the I didn't go through the full thing, but it referenced different things that are tied to different Olympian gods. But you could also transfer that across to the Greyhawk deities and the other deities of D&D, and kind of look at, okay, these are, because all of these deities that the cleric that you can follow as a cleric have their own backstories. They have their own history, and
what? They're actually
cool
living
stuff.
entities?
They have, they're three-dimensional, and it's really cool.
No, I think that's awesome.
Just interesting ways to tie, it was a thought of interesting ways to tie your cleric more fully to the deity that they're following. You're not just a follower of them, you're devoted to them. I mean, and you're devout. And so that tying that into your RP and characterization, I think, is a really interesting thing to take into account that you might not necessarily do when you're a new player. But yeah, so that popped out to me.
No, I love that. And so, I don't use any of the Greek gods in any of my campaigns, but I don't think that's the point here. The point here is use these for inspiration, and as you look at the deities, the pantheon of whatever gaming system you're playing, if it's the original Greyhawk, the gods of Orth and the Flyness, or if it's something you're playing Paizo and Galarian, or you're playing Castles and Crusades, whatever game system you're playing, invest those deities with a real sense of depth and personality, and it makes the. I'm a convert. I want to play a cleric. My next character. I never get to play. I don't know whenever I get to play. Maybe a Blue Box Con. I'll get to play maybe a Blue Box Con. I'll make a cleric for Blue Box Con when I play at that. We'll see how that goes. He'll probably die in 5 minutes. All right, what else?
Hey, my very first cleric, I've told you this story many times before. She died in literally 5 minutes, and I'm still hyped about clerics, so...
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm looking. Oh, I've shown this before. The Orc's Nest. I love this because I was here 2 years ago. This shop is still open in London. You can walk in there. I've got some minis. Let me see here. Let me find one. This guy. I bought this guy at the Orc's Nest in London just a couple years ago. Custom painted minis. Wait, actually, no, that's not the right one. Hold on. Oh, is this? No. I'll find it later. All right. So anyway, cool stuff. All right. So you want to go to 250? 253?
I had one
283. Okay.
Go into the page. There was the article about your place in the grand scheme, clerics alignment and religion in your campaign, and that one it's more directed for dungeon masters.
Which
that's page 36.
In
the one you are currently on.
The 153. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So all right. So hold on. There we go. Yeah. I pulled that up. There we go.
Yeah, and so this is actually looking specifically at like how even to the point of building your own campaign, how to establish what that pantheon's going to look like and how your clerics are going to behave and stuff like that within the games and the questions and answers that you have to ask yourself when you're looking at those things. So this one's more of a how to do clerics in a world that has clerics outside of the party, because clerics are everywhere. When you have churches, you have clerics.
Bill, stop that. The chat is misbehaving tonight. No, she's dead on right. So here, these questions I highlighted, great questions for playing clerics in your campaign. Are good and evil primal forces of the universe, or merely individual ways of classifying behaviors? Which is a whole interesting topic. You get to a moral law. Where's the moral lawgiver? I think this is really where this goes. So what's the cosmogony of the game world? How man and other races originated? Multitude of deities, relationship of deities, physical universe. What's the relationship of deities in the individual campaign? All these things can add a richness to how you play the clerics, and hopefully, Terry will keep healing people because I'm now seeing the light with clerics. All right, continue.
Call's doomed.
Yeah, call is doomed.
But yeah, so let's go to 283 now, because this Dragon magazine, it's a newer one, but it is also the clerics and deities issue. This was a whole, there's a whole section in this Dragon magazine that is specifically dedicated to deities and deities.
All right, I'll go ahead and show the cover, even though I don't get as excited, but that is really cool cover art, actually. I like that a lot.
Smite evil!
Yes. Oh gosh, that's a good one. Yes, smite evil. Look at that. That is evil being smitten. All right, so and yeah, there's some really cool art in here too. Now, I don't see as many of the neat things that I like with the old school stuff, but that's because I'm just old. So please bear with me, and I'm going to.
Yes, this one's from 1990, so it's much newer.
Yeah, I graduated in '89 from high school, so. All right, so here we go. Yes, this is really cool. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. So through this whole Dragon Mag, it's about building a campaign, or world building, ideas, suggestions and this stuff. But the article that specifically looking at, because if you want to just see cool stuff for world building, you should definitely check this out. And there's also some really interesting specialized clerics that they have in here, which is really kind of cool, where they are not just what you would consider a standard PC cleric, but some that are a little more specialized. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, having these more for players that are looking for something a little different or a little more advanced maybe in the game, to have something that's more specialized to what they would be interested in playing.
No, dead on. Thank you. So I want to get to the page because you're right. This is all about clerics, and actually, I'm loving this artwork. Some of this stuff reminds me. When you look at this artwork, let me see. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Evelyn. Did you hear me talk about something a lot? The shot I have up on the screen, does it remind you of any game system or AD&D world that I talk about a lot? Because to me, this looks like something I talk about often.
Dark Sun?
Dark Sun, it does, yes. This looks a lot like the artwork is just, it's really cool with that sepia toned. I know it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but anyway, I just thought that was cool.
But yeah, I
Pat had it.
Yeah. You can definitely start seeing the later influences of D&D in this particular Dragon magazine. But yeah, so there's there's the prestige classes for clerics, the champions of virtue, and there's different ones that are specific to like the Shining Blade of Hyronius, and like the ones that are tied to particular deities that are built out to be more of a prestige class than your standard.
Are you watching this, Brim? You need to convert. You're no longer a fighter. You need to be a cleric of Hyronius in this fashion, a shining blade.
That'd be awesome. It's kind of, and this is kind of the point where we're starting to get into clerics using non-just blunt weapons. Where the cleric's weapon of choice, it's around 3.5 really, but where their weapon of choice is actually based on the deity that they worship, and they carry the weapon that their deity uses. So like in Pathfinder, Sarenrae, her blade is a scimitar, so her clerics carry scimitars and things like that.
No, that's great, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a nice segue, because I did mention earlier I wanted to talk about this, and let me find this. Hold on here. This was something that was mentioned by our own ever mysterious Tim, and it's going to be covered again when we do our follow-up with him here in a few weeks on ancient lore and armor, arcane tactics. Evelyn, do you know who this is? I have him up on my screen now.
Oh, I believe we have discussed him.
We have.
I can't remember his name, but
okay.
It was.
It's okay. I didn't remember it either until I asked him a second time today, so I'm not flexing on you. So this is Adv of Bayeux. He is a famous cleric. He died in 1097. He was famous as a brother of William the Conqueror, and he led several combats. And of course, what you see is him here wielding a blunt weapon. Now, this is debated. There was a book written, I forget the title of the book, but it was like in 1903, where it was ascribed that he chose to use the blunt weapon because they did not want to, quote unquote, draw blood. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen someone take a club to the head, but blood happens. But, it was the differentiate between the edge weapon. Others have said it was more just sort of a typical rite of the passage for this type of individual, that they would operate with this. And so this whole idea of a cleric wielding only blunt weapons seems to have come from our friend Odo of Bayeux, and he was part of the whole Norman conquest process, and I just think that's a super fun sort of factoid.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's like the initial establishment of clerics using only blunt weapons is tied to actual history and not just, a thing that they chose to do.
Well, no, and I think that really, it does underscore the chainmail roots of the system.
Mm-hmm.
That you had Gygax and Artisan, these guys in a basement in Wisconsin, who were playing war games, and they were historians. They were interested in, so a lot of D&D, of course, the typical fantasy tropes. Now, you had Spelljammer, and then you had Dark Sun, and you have all kinds of Planescape and cool other worlds, but the original world was based on a modification of medieval Europe, and really was born from the roots of facts, which is really cool to me, because when you can take, this is why I've done a lot of the stuff that I've done with Tim and others, take facts, don't make them simulations in your game, take them inspirations into your game, and that's exactly what Gary and Dave did. So.
Yep. So around 3.5 is actually when you start seeing the variation in the weapon choices, which is what is kind of mentioned in those prestige classes there. But yeah, so the particular article now that I want to look at in 283 is actually playing the priestly part.
Which is page...
And it's pages 48 through 52.
Okay, I'm almost there. Sorry, I'm just being distracted. This is really, I got it. I love this artwork. This is a great, this is a fantastic magazine. 283, I'm sorry, I slept on it, guys. It's good. All right, go ahead.
So basically in this article, we're looking at, basically, it's dealing with both NPC clerics within a game. And it's actually talking about, it actually deals with the NPCs first, but I love this. Cleric, the cry of the wounded warrior, has become a D&D synonym for medic. Clerics are too often used only to provide healing magic. At the opposite extreme is the stereotypical NPC cleric, a fanatic member of a crazed cult who fouls the rites heroes must stop. It doesn't have to be this way. Played well, a cleric character can have a pivotal role in shaping the flavor of the game. NPC priests can be three-dimensional characters who give a campaign fresh breath of life. Players and DMs alike should carefully consider three major aspects of clerics in D&D. The function of a cleric in the community, primarily NPCs, the role of the adventuring cleric, primarily PCs, and the special qualities of divine magic and its use in the campaign. So basically it starts off with looking at primarily the NPC cleric and what a party should basically expect when they come across clerics in the game, which is reasonable. That the clerics will know the gossip because everybody goes around the, they spend their time around the churches and stuff, and so they're gonna know kind of what's going on in town and what's the dirt basically, because that's where they would go. So they might know. If some terrible crime has happened, they might know when it happened and who was harmed by it. They might not have searched out exactly who caused it, but they can, there might be a good place to seek a lead. They're good sources of local history a lot of times because the church is there. And they keep record of things within not only the local history but historical record in general. And this is seen throughout the churches in actual history, not just D&D history, but they were one of the major sources of historical record and keeping track of historical record for a very long time. And so your NPC clerics might be a great person to talk to about those things. And of course they're going to have religious information because that's their whole thing. They might know what goes on in the local politics. They are, they could be someone you go to for a bit of advice, some sage wisdom, because that's what they do. They listen to people's troubles and they try to help if they're good clerics. The evil ones not so much. The charity, helping the community. You're gonna see, and we've done this in some of our games actually, where various adventurers will leave alms for the churches to in thanks or to help forward that charity on with the connection from both PC and the NPC standpoint. Also offering sanctuary, because the church's laws might not be the same as the local laws, and if someone is trying to escape from something, that might be a way to protect somebody from something horrible that's going to happen that might not be just, though it fits within the local laws. That's why, there are clerics that are chaotic, because, what is just in law might not be just in fact, which is a whole level of discussion. But you have that idea that sometimes the church will protect somebody from something horrible that might otherwise happen to them, and so that's so the NPC cleric would have the role of and the church would have the role of providing sanctuary potentially to player characters, and various prayer and sacrifices and a little bit of magic. When you go to a cleric, and you know, you might seek out a healing spell. But a lot of times when you're going across a church, and we've seen this also in several of our campaigns, where you'll have to go to multiple churches to find.
Yeah, that just happened a few weeks ago.
Do the thing you're trying to do.
Well, yeah, because you wanted a restoration of a limb for Cade, and the first church you went to, the cleric was not of high enough power for that. So you know, it should not be on every street corner. That's so true.
Right. Yeah. So just the consideration of like that, like your NPC clerics might have different levels of skills, and you know, most of the time they can do healing magics, but when you get into like greater restorations and into resurrections and that sort of things, you're going to have to find a very specialized cleric, very high level cleric, and you know, if you're in a small town, you might not find that. You know, you might need to be in a bigger city to be able to do that. And if you're dead, you're probably dead. Because if you can't get there, well, yeah, kind of out of luck. But you know, and then it goes into like what not to expect from NPC clerics, which is like in-depth investigation. That's the PC's job as a cleric. You know, you're not they're not going to be. Your friar at the church is not going to be going out playing Sherlock in his spare time. He's a little busy doing other things. And just like, you know, the sacraments and rites of passage. And I thought this article was particularly interesting because it's talking about how, you know, yes, they do perform sacraments and rites of passage, but they might not perform it for your party. Because if you don't follow the deity that is the church of, they might not be inclined to perform any sorts of specific rites for you. And, you know, if you find yourself there and you're wanting something, they might say, well, I'm sorry, but you're out of luck. So that's something that raising the dead, once again, level-based stuff, and anything to excess, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah,
but,
that is
like,
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so, you know, it says clerics of many religions are expected to be giving, but no one demands they be stupid. Clerics know when they're being taken advantage of, and most are strong enough to say no when it's time to say no. You know, because no matter if you're dealing with the NPC cleric or a PC cleric, both have high wisdom scores, y'all. So
ideally, I mean, you could have an incompetent cleric with a low wisdom score.
But you're not going to be able to cast spells very high level.
You might get, you get that first level spell off, you know. Your Cure Light gives back 1 hit point. Hey, real quick, I want to say thanks in the chat. There's been a lot of debate. Everybody's loving what you're doing, Evelyn. Great job tonight. Thank you so much. Also, a lot of commentary about the shirt. No, I am not covering dino tattoos beneath this shirt. And yes, I am still wearing it. I have one more night of penance, or one more day of penance. I promised a full week. LMA did not see it last week because we didn't have LMA last week, and then our Sunday Rune Lords campaign didn't see it because we didn't have our Sunday Rune Lords. So I've got to wear it tonight and tomorrow night. And then I thought I was done, but people are telling me I have to wear it in Blue Box Con, so we'll see. Also, I saw Carlos from Castle Entertainment. Amazing content creator. His Patreon is fantastic. Please support him. And I have right here the cheetah dice that I got from working with him on the one shot. These are super cool dice. Carlos, thank you so much. I love them. And if you were part of that one shot, you can, or you're part of his Patreon, you can go on, you can vote for your cheetah. Carlos is going to use the funds from that through Castle Entertainment to adopt a cheetah over there. It's a cheetah that can't be released into the wild. Because of the circumstances of its origin. And so you can go on to his Patreon. If you're part of this whole process, you can vote for your cheetah. It's super cool. I did it today. You'll love it. All right, Evelyn, please continue. Wait. So Moose said, yeah, he said, I respectfully disagree. We like, hey, this is what we call cognitive conflict here. I like a little mix it up. You don't have to be an echo chamber. So he said the reason he disagrees is the local church was in concert with the local authorities on everything. Religious organizations were extremely powerful in the way they often wrote many of the local laws to benefit themselves. The same thing happened in the U.S. as well. I'll let you. I have thoughts, but I'll let you respond.
I would have to continue to disagree with this. Yes, in cases of the massive overarching establishment of the church, yes. However, that was not the case for all churches. Several would provide sanctuary to people who were evading things that were considered unjust and against God's law, and there are historical record of that. However, we're also talking about D&D in a fantasy setting, and things are not necessarily going to always follow the way that the church has functioned in our history as well. So when I'm speaking about the way things are church-wise versus rules, I'm speaking to D&D and not necessarily specifically to history.
No, and so actually that's a great point. And so I think Moose is right in one sense. So if you want to look at the analog of the ancient Roman Church and Catholicism in the heart of Rome, it was an extraordinarily powerful force. It was geopolitical. It controlled so much of that area and the politics. That is a bit of an aberration. You have had typically disparate churches, disparate faiths. You have an underground church right now that happens in China that is very growing. So these things happen throughout human history. But your last point, I think is the best, which is it's fantasy. So if you want to make a game world or a game city-state where because by the way, this appeals to me, this idea of sort of the lawful neutral inquisitor, authoritarian religious influence that is unforgiving. It can be a great nemesis in a game world. Or if you want to have something which is more fluid and kind of more similar to what we see here in our own world, that's fine. It's your game world. And you know what helped me with this? My accents. Because I read this a few months ago. I don't know where I just do whatever I feel like with my accents. And I read somebody, I forget what it was, the article that said, don't try to be a French accent or an English accent or a German accent or just you're in a fantasy world. So if your accent doesn't sound like what someone, a lot of people tease me about my English woman accent. Say it sounds like my Monty Python accent. Well, phooey on you. It's just what I do. So it doesn't have to be exactly right. So anyway, all right, sorry. Go ahead. Let's wrap this up, Evelyn. I think this has been so much fun. We do want to raid and get people over to Jay. Also, tonight, I want to say let me cover a couple things before Evelyn wraps up. One, we have exciting shows coming up. On the 14th, next week, we're going to be covering Talespire. We're going to do a dive into it. Then we're off on the 21st because I'm traveling for business that week. And then on the 28th, I think, not confirmed yet, but I think we're going to be joined by the founders of Talespire. Are going to come on with us live on LMA. It will be a blast. And then we're diving into stuff coming out of that into May. We've got Mike Disney we're going to have coming in. We got the ever mysterious Tim. We're going to old school D&D stuff. So this is going to be a place where you see the best of new tech and the truest of old school D&D stuff. So please stay with us. And then tonight, I don't think I'll be raiding into Jay. And I told Jay this. So Jay and I, we're so tight. We talk all the time. So I'm going to try to raid into DM Dave of Guild Superior, who played in my one-shot. He played the dwarf in my one-shot. He was such a good role player. He's got a fledgling Greyhawk campaign. He's got maybe 100 followers, so I want to raid into him tonight if he's live. And Evelyn, you can maybe check that while I'm talking, and we can support him. But if you're a regular Jay follower, I want to be clear. I don't want to pull anybody away from Lord Gasumba's stream. So if you want to jump over to Jay right now, please do so. Anybody that wants to check out a new stream tonight that's also Greyhawk oriented, I think he's running Ghost of Saltmarsh, but it's in a Greyhawk context. But he's a great role player and he's a good guy. We're going to raid into him in a moment. All right, Evelyn, bring us home.
All right. So last but not least, but the article, and like I said, I'll share all these so you guys can check them out. Since I didn't have time enough, there's so much to talk about in an hour. But just the various things that when you're building your cleric to think about, and it asks a lot of really good questions that. as a player who's played a cleric for a while, these are some things I've considered, and some other things that I hadn't necessarily thought about when creating cleric backstories. But they're really fascinating, and they're really good ones to kind of chew on when you're kind of developing. Like, what's your relationship to your deity is kind of a common one, but like a lot of like, how do they fit into how would they go, like why would they be adventuring? Why would a cleric choose to leave the church and go out in this world? Is it their deity called them there? Is it a choice of theirs? What propels them that way? And what motivates them? What do they, what are they gaining or accomplishing by doing this? Are they trying to convert people, or are they just trying to, aid as many people as they can? Is it some sort of, fulfillment that they're looking for? And how do they fit in? What type of cleric were they? Within the confines of their church? What was their rank and these sorts of things? Did they even grow up in the church, or were they brought to the faith later? And that's so those sorts of things are all. And there's several other questions, but those are all sorts of really good questions that you can ask yourself and look at when you're creating your cleric. Then that you can build off of through your roleplay and continue on into the game.
Yeah, so well said. Evelyn, bravo. So well done tonight. Fantastic as always. I love working with you here on Blue Box, and thank you to all of our mad chatters. Yes, I see all that. It was good to have so many of our streamers on tonight. Thank you for the raid. Time Lord's wife, Kayla was on tonight, but then we had Josh that rated us as well, and we appreciate all of that support in the community. Reminder, I talked about it. Let me just show it to you again. This is Tailspire. It's super cool. I've told everybody my minis are not going away. I love the physical terrain. This is going to always be part of Blue Box, but I also like pushing the boundaries, augmenting the immersion, and we've got some really, really fun stuff coming up over the next couple weeks where we'll be showing this to you. So it looks like, thank you, Bobcat. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you. Yes, all of you. We appreciate that. Evelyn did a great job tonight, as always. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. By the way, you can create all kinds of playgrounds on Tailspire. So I created one for my 10-year-old daughter where she can come in here and build. I told her it's just like Minecraft, and that got her excited. So we'll see how long she believes that. So, it's going to be a fun thing that we're going to cover here over the next couple of weeks. But we're going to go ahead and raid. And Evelyn, thank you again for tonight. Thank you to all the mad chatters. Thank you for the follows, the subs. Great support tonight. Yes, absolutely. She rocks. She did a great job. And so we're going to raid, and let me pull up. Let's see. I still don't see... I don't see Jay up live yet, and he's almost...
Jay is definitely live. He's currently got 25 viewers.
Okay, all right. So that's so... I don't really know why this raid thing... Okay, yeah, he's got 25. Let me try again for Guild Superior.
He is not or they are not currently showing up.
All right, so we'll do that maybe next week, because I don't want to keep our followers, and I'll talk with him. But just check him out, give him a follow anyway. And here we go, rating Lord Gazumba. Thank you to all of our friends. Thank you to all of our followers. Have a great night. We'll see you back Sunday at 1:30. Our Rise of the Rune Lords campaign. It is in a really fun spot, and great players. Evelyn's in that. Also Captain Kate Cardinal, Alcott Devereaux, Wizard Extraordinaire. Brual, the brooding half-orc who covers his fangs as often as...
Aemon in that one.
Aemon, that's right. That's right.
Dwarven paladin, sir.
Aemon. So check that all out. We'll be back on Sunday with that. Thank you, everybody. Blue Box, raiding into Lord. Not just Jay, not just Gazumba. Lord Gazumba. And we raid now. Boom.